Pridružil se nam bo Mauricio Hashizume, reporter Brazil, kolega iz Brazilije, izvajal, je to v bistvu samostojni raziskovalec, raziskoval je, kaj se dogaja s stvarmi, ki jih v bistvu dobivamo na evropske mize in se proizvajajo v Braziliji.
So, thanks very much for the invitation. Yes, I'm here just to point out some findings that we had in our report launched in March 21 about 4 supply chains. Of course, it's a very synthetic document with just a few points, especially dealing with the environmental impacts and the human rights, more linked to the labor area, especially the cases of slave labor, which is one of the specialties of Reporter Brazil, investigating countryside and all of the big cities in Brazil. So this is just, I'll just have 15 minutes, so I will be a little bit quick in my presentation, but if you have some questions, just put after my points. So, but Brazil has a very strong and a very long relationship with EU dealing with agricultural products, commodities. So just to understand, in the last years, of course, we will have a very strong participation of China in our exports, but during last decades, EU was one of the more important buyer of Brazilian products, especially agricultural products. So, but into 2020, EU accounted for 16 and almost 17% of all Brazilian export basket. It's a lot, and this is a very important thing to know, that everything that happens in Europe has a lot of linkage with Brazilian situation. So this is the first point that we will always need to stress, that this relationship, and this is not for this, that the agreement between Mercosur and EU is a very important thing as well. So we need to just to understand that importance and this relevance of this relationship. And dealing with these 4 supply chains, just a very quick information about these 4 products. Beef probably is, as always, we are talking about this issue around the world. Beef probably is the worst sector in Brazil. So almost, we have lots and lots of research related to this matter, but almost 75 to 7% of all deforested areas in Amazon are covered by pastures. So this is huge. And this, we heard in the introduction about land grabbing and other, especially land issues in Brazil, which is very, very problematic now, especially with this government, that they are always pushing for more and more violations against land rights for indigenous communities, traditional communities, quilombola communities, which is the past slave people who are living in communities inside Brazil. So all this, the relationship of the beef chain with all of these impacts are huge. So we are lots and lots of evidences linked to that. And especially when we see, we have a very important thing here, dealing with this issue, because we have a very specific phenomenon that we call indirect supply, which is the form that producers with problems, environmental and human rights problems, used to cut the legislations and other forms of voluntary compromises that the supply chain actors, agents has publicly, using indirect forms of. We have a lot of report pieces about that. So they find ways to cut all these compromises, putting indirect agents in this supply chain. So this is very important thing. So if we do not face this problem, we will have a lot of consequences, as we had decades for almost centuries in Brazil. So this is one very important question. So just dealing with the European exports for EU, we will have almost half of the meat that goes to Europe with probably indirect contamination. So for 2 beefs, 1 beef is probably linked to problems in deforestation, indirect contamination, as some researchers are calling, in Brazil. So it's huge. So this is just a piece about the volume of impacts that that chain causes in Brazil. Orange, just to have in mind, orange is a very concentrated supply chain. Just 3 big producers in Brazil supplies almost 3 of 5 cups of orange juice around the world. So it's a very, very concentrated sector as well. And we have a lot of problems linked to the workers that are hired to harvest in seasonal basis, which we will have inspections all season with problems linked to these 3 big producers. So it's a very important thing as well, because Europe's a very known and high consumer of Brazilian orange juice. And coffee, we have lots of Brazil has a very strong market share, almost 27% of the market share of the international exports of coffee. So it's huge in international ground. And we saw lots of cases freed of slave labor in coffee chain as well. So this is a very concerning thing that we are seeing in the last years. And it's wrong here, but it's cocoa. Cocoa is the last one, which is decentralized as family units and regionally concentrated. So the chain of cocoa is very difficult to inspect, because they use small units, family units in Brazil to produce. Cocoa is not Brazil is not a big producer of cocoa, but the product is growing, and the problem, especially linked with these family units, which often has, including child labor, is very concerning as well. So this is the four chains that we are dealing in this report. So this is just a chart with that reinforces the relationship between land expansion and crop production. We are not saying we are not touching here in another very problematic product that came from Brazil, which is soy. But we are we can talk a little bit more later. But the pasture and the beef industry, so the participation is very high, and we see this in the last decades. The participation of these two chains, it's almost 80% of deforestation. So it's very high, the importance of these two chains. And this is just an example made by Trace, which is an initiative that follows the supply chains and track the relationship. But this is just a small piece for 2017, and just about two states of Brazil, Mato Grosso and Pará, two of the biggest producers, of course, but the numbers are always subestimated in a sense, because the volume is much higher, and the time frame, of course, if we took a greater time frame, we have a lot of more relations, and but you can see that from municipalities, Brazilian municipalities to EU countries, we have a lot of relationship, especially in this example for Italy, Netherlands, Spain, and Germany, which is like a middle point to another countries, of course, like Slovenia, probably. So this is a very important thing as well to understand. We need to understand, and this is not so easy, because all the corporate environment is to hide these paths and these pathways, and we need to understand with more precision all of these chains, and understand the contribution or the participation of each one. So this is one thing that we are always stressing as well. Just to have a quick point focus in this four, as I said, beef is not just very linked to the deforestation, as we are saying, but almost half of the slave labor cases in Brazil from 1995 to 2020 October took place in livestock sector. So this is huge as well. And the livestock sector in Brazil is almost all spread in almost all country, and it's very difficult to investigate and to inspect as well. So it's almost 7,000 people were freed in this sector. It's huge. So this is an important thing that we need to show about this sector. Orange, as I said, orange is it's a very important chain for Brazilian export in agriculture, and Europe is a very large market. About 2/3 goes to Europe. So and what we find in this, we will have a lot of inspections in the last years. One thing that I need to mention is that inspections are going down in Brazil, unfortunately, because, of course, of the precarization of the units, because of the falling investments in this area of inspections, labor inspections in Brazil. We are seeing a very few inspections in plantations now. And even with this small amount of inspection, we had cases in orange juice chain as well, linked, as I said, with that 3 big producers. In December last year, we had one case that we had a farm used to supply one of these big companies called Citrosuco. So it is going in. This is functioning now. It's a very known form of slave labor and other precarities in Brazil. The other chain, the one point about orange juice, we have one piece of this information as well, calculated by Oxfam in 2018, about the share, the value that stays in each part of this chain in Brazil. And the orange juice sector is very, very concentrated. So small farmers stays with just 2.5% to 7% of the value of this chain. When we have supermarket chains of United States, UK, France, and Germany, for instance, as you see in the chart, staying even 45% almost of the value of this chain. So this is very important thing, the inequality of these values and how who are gaining in this chain in real thing, in real matter. So this is one important thing that we are stressing here. I'm just ending. Coffee, we have a lot of producers in Brazil. Coffee is a very spread agricultural product in Brazil as well. And of course, once again, EU countries are especially important consumer of the Brazilian coffee. And we had in the last year lots of, in each of 12 years between 22 and 2020, we had more than 100 people rescued from slavery in coffee sector as well. So it is huge, and it's very very concerning area as well. And cocoa, as I said, we had a lot of problem with small producers, like disguised as partnerships, you know, and we have these small areas in Pará and Bahia especially, which is very difficult as well to have. So all that kind of seals, we have certificates we normally see in this area, as in coffee sector as well. We find lots of holes in these certificates and seals as well of sustainability or human rights issues. So we need to have more and more we need to be more and more careful about these areas, because what we are doing until now is not enough, clearly. And this is, I guess I will not have so much time to develop a little bit more of these points, but this is Reporters Brazil's contacts. And if you have any question or any kind of point that you want to share or to send us, just feel free. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mauricio. It was a great presentation. Hvala, Mauricio. Mogoče, če imamo kakšno vprašanje iz dvorane, preden gremo na spletno platformo. V bistvu je vseeno, se prevaja tudi obratno.
I'll continue in English. Thank you much for the presentation. My name is Mark Maurer. I think the topic that you talked about is very important. I think in particular you mentioned beef as the worst sector in Brazil, connecting environmental and social issues, which are obviously very linked. My question would be, you mentioned all the problems that are associated with supply chains, but what can individuals, countries, and the EU as a whole do? Because I think that it's a much wider problem when the onus is put too much on the individual. So, for example, my actions relate to eating a little bit less meat, buying local meat. I actually have a coffee from Brazil with me right now, which I don't feel too bad about because it's from a fair trade shop. But what would you say is the key, let's say, 3 steps that as an individual, as a country, Slovenia, maybe, for example, an EU can do to really kind of expedite the environmental and social issues connected with supply chains, with maybe Brazil in particular?
Yeah, one thing we are doing here now, one thing is especially the question of legislation. Of course, we need to have a more strong and more we need to have more. It is important to have more confidence in that informations and that sources and that's origins of the products that are going overseas. This is or that came in from overseas as your standpoint. So this is a very important thing. It's not an individual, especially thinking with the personal diet or a personal choose, but which is very important as well, but we need to go a little bit further in that kind of initiatives like legislations, like the pressure, the international pressure, international community pressure, for instance, for the question of the deforestation of Amazon is very, very important. Very, very important because and the pressure needs to be real pressure, not just to show the public that you have some kind of environmental preoccupation. No, it is very important. It's almost unbelievable that what is going on in Brazilian about Brazilian government now. They are openly incentive. We have an open incentive to destruction in Brazil now, and this needs to be very clear for the other governments and other blocs like you to have a very strong manifestation against this, because I live in Tocantins, which is part in Cerrado and part in Amazon. What we see here is the incentive of destruction. We do not have another name to show this, and all of these exportation chains are functioning like nothing is. We had nothing happening here, so we need to be a little bit more. No, we need lots more responsible and lots of more serious about the impacts and the relationship between the consume and the exports chains and environmental and human rights issues.
Mogoče še kakšno vprašanje v živo ali prek spleta? Any other questions, comments, maybe? Yes, sir.
Hello, thank you. My name is Jiva. I'm from Slovenian Fair Trade representation, actually. But I was wondering, how did COVID affect all this situation in Brazil? Since we have you now live and we can talk about it.
So, sorry, it was cut. I didn't hear you well.
How did COVID situation affect the situation? Because I guess it made it worse, not better.
Oh yes, thank you. Now I've got it. Yes, COVID. What happened in Brazil dealing with the COVID pandemics? That sector, agricultural sector, agribusiness sector, didn't stop. They didn't stop, and they expanded all these areas, all these frontiers, using pandemics in that favor, and they are using this we had lots of problems with the food question in Brazil. Now we have hunger, and we have lots of things because all of these products are going overseas, and we do not have lots of basic products for consume here in Brazil. And we had lots and lots of problems dealing with pandemics as well. Just to mention one thing, the indigenous people was proportionally one of the more affected of more people died from COVID in Brazil. So this is what we are seeing. So the problems are much worse than we are picturing, because the situation are very difficult, and all of with this we had a lot of researchers linking fires, for instance, with health and lung problems, of course, and lung problems, of course, affected but by the pandemic. So we have a lot. It's like a combination of problems, and we are facing a very worse situation now, and it's not so easy to find just one reason or one factor dealing. But of course, the pandemics put the things worse than we had in the past, and we end this all this path that we are following during decades and years.